This is That One Audition with Alyshia Ochse.
So I always start in the beginning, but you had no real, was it that you were moving around so much and then all of a sudden theater and movies and television came to the forefront? Like, how do we start? Is this something that pulls you in or you seek this out?
Yeah, I was living in places like India, Indonesia. My dad was in the Foreign Service, and I grew up in these exotic places. And of course, it was fantastic, but also I was a kid, so all I did was complain. We did not have TV. There was nothing, no TV. So we'd go visit the grandparents in Pasadena, and I was like, oh, this is what I want. And then go back, and there's no TV. Okay, so I'm about 5 years old, and my dad at the naval base in Madras in India. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is playing. He says, I'm gonna take you to go see it. It's a movie. I'm like, wow. This movie, while I was watching Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, 5 years old, I thought, I don't know exactly what they're doing up there, but I want to do that. So it did start with that. And then it was just a matter of getting back to the States. So when I was about 10, 11, 12, I'm back in the States. I'm a shy kid. My mom's trying to help me. She finds a class for me, and then I start doing it.
Did you guys come to Pasadena or did you go to New York?
Washington, D.C. So we settled in a suburb of D.C., this
Yeah.
quaint Annandale, Virginia, just inside the Beltway. So I went from round the world and then suburb because my dad switched jobs. Then he was working for the Department of Energy, still the government. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to schools in a suburb, and there wasn't a lot of opportunity. It wasn't New York or LA. But there was one class, and then eventually I got into some different things and just fell in love with it.
So then once you're done with school, I read you went straight to New York, right? You were thinking more theater.
Yeah, I went to UVA because I wanted to
Ah,
just have an education. I didn't even major in theater because they had a great English department, and I
mhm.
thought, just go do that. It's related to what I want to do. I did a lot of plays, and it was great. And then, yeah, I go to New York, and I even had a resume. I had done a couple educational films. I'd done some theater in Washington, D.C. Doesn't matter. You get to New York, throw it out.
That's the thing. Okay, so then how does one, because I saw that you had an early development deal. Did this come pre-Loverboy, post-Loverboy? Because Dylan, I have to say, you come into my world. I loved that movie. I talk about not having like television and film around. I had the VHS of Loverboy and we watched it over and over
Oh
again.
my God, that's funny. That is funny.
Like so random.
Loverboy was the first movie I did, but that comes after getting started. The way I got started is you got to get lucky.
What was your
Um,
luck
I'm
streak?
all ready to go. I'm taking acting classes in New York. I'm waiting tables, and somebody walks in, this attractive young woman, and she's flirty, and she sits down and orders some. It's Empire Diner in New York, so it's still actually there. Anyway, long story short, it's Julia Roberts, who introduces herself as, Hi, I'm Eric Roberts' sister, because honest to God, that's all she was at the time. But she did have a manager, and one thing led to another. She kept coming in. She lived around the corner. And we'd laugh a little bit, and I was a terrible waiter, so I was always a little preoccupied. Anyway, she invited me to a cookout. I said I didn't go. I had a girlfriend also I was just trying to work. Anyway, the less I would respond to her, the more she would come in and get sassy with me. Long story short, she told me to go see her manager. She was just being nice. She doesn't know anything about me as an actor. She said, get a picture and resume and send it to him. I had to get picture and resume. I hurry up and spend $300 getting a headshot. Anyway, the story goes on because the manager's not interested. And I keep calling him saying, no, listen, Julia said, and he's, yeah, whatever, kid, go get started, come back to me. And I called him and called him. Finally, I go to where this is the kind of, just because you're young, you have some gumption. I go to where he lives, and it's all payphones at this point. And there are a bank of payphones at the foot of his building. And I call him. I say, I'm here. You can get this over with right now. And he's like, all right, come up. I go up. He says, he's holding the phone against his, like, I'm only going to be there seconds. And he says, I told you, you got to get started, then you come back. And I said, Julia said, he said, I don't, Julia's got to get her own job. Go figure it out. He took pity on me because he called me back. I was waiting for the elevator. and he sends me to the commercial agent. That's how I got going. So I had an agent simply because Julia Roberts, who at that point, she had done,
Has she done
maybe she,
Mystic Pizza yet?
no, but she had done Satisfaction. There was already talk really early with her.
Mhm.
And anybody who had a manager with something, you know how many thousands of actors arrive in New
Yeah.
York and they can never get an agent or a manager. Anyway, I do that for about a year. I get some little jobs, and then I
Did you
end
get
up
some
signing with
commercials?
with her manager, Bob McGowan, who is my manager to this day, 38 years later.
Is that still Julia's manager as well?
No, she outgrew him. So her rise happened so quickly. And she was getting bigger and bigger agents. And he was really new to the business and he couldn't handle all that.
I love that you're still rocking with Bob after all
Yeah.
these years. So you
Yeah.
started doing some commercials, and that's when Bob was like, oh, okay, let me just throw some other things at you.
Exactly. There was an after school special, you know, those little
Yeah.
things. And every young actor is trying to get a job in it because it's gettable. It's not
Mhm.
stars, it's some little thing. And it's actually pretty good. And I get the role, and then I get a phone call from Bob. Hey, you don't love me anymore because I used to call him all the time, and then I'm off on my own. Anyway, I sign with him. Things start happening. I'm finally out of the restaurant business, and yeah, I had been up for something else and didn't get it, and I was so bummed. And then I got a call that said, "You got to go to LA. You're doing Loverboy." So that was my first movie.
That was your first movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I want to ping pong into, especially during that time, if you start in movies, don't you dare go to television, right? Like, especially they were so uh, divided at that time. If you started
They
in
were.
television, it was harder to get into film. So you starting in Loverboy ends up being a great success. And then a few years later, you have Congo. Are you just grabbing any job at that point that'll come through? Because isn't there a television show? I want to know where the development deal comes in. Is that
That
post
comes
Loverboy?
in. That comes in after Loverboy.
Comes in
So
after?
I didn't ever, you're right, there was a divide, but when you're new and you're just getting in, until you're something, and Loverboy didn't make me something. That was Patrick
That
Dempsey,
was Patrick, but
and it was
still,
fun.
yeah.
It was a great
Hmm.
experience for me, but it didn't make anything for me. In fact, they made me come out as an LA hire. I lived in New York. I had to put
You
myself up.
did.
I had to live with my grandparents and friends. And anyway, that's what it was because you're new and that's how it works. So I would take any kind of job. What was missing in all this is I wanted to do theater and
That
nothing was happening for me in theater. I'd go to an audition. Thank you, but I'd go to an audition for a TV pilot or a TV show, and I'd at least get callbacks, right? So I
hmm
just took what I can get. I did Loverboy, I did Betsy's Wedding with
hmm
Molly Ringwald, I did a movie called Where the Heart Is.
Yep.
None of those two weren't great movies, but that started a little bit of some momentum. I was Molly Ringwald's groom in Betsy's
Mhm.
Wedding, and in Where the Heart Is, not a great movie, but John Boorman directed it, and that got a little buzz. So somewhere right in there, suddenly ABC said, yeah, we'll do a development deal for a TV show where you would have to be on ABC and nowhere else. That's what was dangerous because this is back when all you had were the networks.
Yeah.
That's all that there was. But they pay you some money. And I thought, I like the idea of meeting out in LA with writers and trying to find the right thing. And that's how I got a show called Gabriel's Fire with James Earl Jones. So I spent a year with James Earl Jones and I learned a lot.
Well, that's
Again,
what I want to know. Yeah, what
yeah,
did you learn in that time? Because your desire is to be on stage, and TV
yeah,
is such a different medium, but you're getting to live with the same character.
yep.
So, what are some of the skill sets that you pick up during this time with
I would
James?
watch him. I had just seen
Yeah.
him only a year before in Fences on Broadway, and it was just blew your mind how good he was in that. And I already knew how good he was, but here I was day in and day out with him, right? And I would watch him. The first thing he'd do is cross out any sort of direction that's in the script. And I would see him doing that, and I'd think, what is he doing?
The parentheticals are more literally the action.
Anything giving a hint about what the character, how they might say a line,
Mhm.
anything like that. Okay. And it was really important. When I say crossed it out, you couldn't see underneath what he was crossing out. By the way, just a delightful man. He knew it was my first TV show and he was great. But another thing that I learned from him is he would get so frustrated with just the same kind of things any actor gets frustrated with. It's a scene that's not working, right? And I don't have to make it work. I'm the lower down guy. He has to make it work. He's the lead. And by the way, he won the Emmy for that year's
Yep.
performance. I'd watch him, and when he couldn't figure it out or something wasn't working, he would get louder. And you remember he had that voice, right?
Beautiful
He
voice.
would get louder, not softer. And after a while, I started to understand it. That's how he could find out, okay, that's not working. It would be like highlighting what you think you're doing and finding out that doesn't work. And he would just feel things out. And I loved how he listened. He would be sometimes just off camera, but a lot of times it would be when he's listening to somebody and he's on camera. And he might do something a little different, or he might laugh when he's not supposed to. He just found ways, because TV, it's all about how restricting it is. Hit a mark, say all your lines while standing on that mark. Please don't move in the middle of the line because then we're going to have to redo the camera and focus and all that. So that's why so many shows are so stagnant years ago. Now they're better about it. But he would just find different ways to mix it up a little bit. I learned just by watching him. It was great.
That, what a treat. And at that point, then from the business side of it, is your overall deal after Gabriel's Fire expired and now you can go, or where do we go next? Because it seems to me you go back right into movies.
It seems like that, but again, Gabriel's Fire, as great as it only lasted one season, as great
Yep.
as he was and he won an Emmy, it didn't do anything for me. And it's something I tell young actors. You can be on a TV series and disappear. Nobody's watching it. Nobody in the
Mhm.
business is watching it. They're busy, right? And so it's as if you've been gone, but they don't know what you are in. And even if an agent says he was on Gabriel's Fire, they don't really, it didn't do enough. So at the end of that season, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm starting over again. Nothing is really catching on. But this is when things started to happen.
Tell
Uh,
me.
okay, so I have two great. So the good news, when you're unknown, you're still possible. So a director might be going through headshots and say, who's this guy? They don't say, oh yeah, Dylan Walsh, I saw him or I know him. And they say, I don't think he's right for this. That's what eventually happens. This is
Hmm.
when they say, yeah, bring him in. Okay. I'm with Rob Reiner auditioning for a small role in A Few Good Men. And I'm so excited because it's a gettable role. It's small enough. I already know the cast because he cast this later. And I read for him and he says, yeah, I like you. And he calls my agent and says, yeah, I got to think about it. Let me just think about it. I'm thinking, oh my God, come on. Then I'm told, go, you're going to meet Milos Forman, the great Milos Forman. You're going to meet him for a movie. I said, what's the movie? They said, nobody really knows. He's top secret. I said, is there a script? They said, no. Any description? No, nothing. They said, just go in, meet him, see what happens. I go in, he's smoking a cigar. He says, hey, how you doing? How you doing? And he asked me a few questions about myself. And the secret that he had was that you're walking in with no tension. You're excited to meet him, maybe a little nervous about that, but you don't have some agenda. You don't have something you worked on that, oh my God, I got to do. You're just you. And that's what he wanted to see. So he asked me, he gives me a few pieces of paper. He says, let's read. Instantly, I started to look ahead. Who is this? Who is this guy? Because if I don't know, what can I do? And he says,
Yeah.
no, I want you to start right now. I was like, without knowing, he says, exactly. So we just start reading. I don't know what's going on, and I'm not a particularly great reader anyway. And I read and I think nothing's happening here. And when we're done, he says, it was great to meet you, and that's it. Okay, I walk out. Back to Rob Reiner. So now he says, I want you to come in, he tells my agent, come in and do the same lines with a Southern accent. So I do. I go back to Rob Reiner. I'm seeing him. But by the way, it's just exciting to meet Rob Reiner
Yeah.
as Milo. And Rob's a little more accessible and it wants you to actually read the script. So I do it with Southern accents. He says, yeah, that was good. He says, but that's not what we're going to do. Okay. He says, so let me think of some more about it. Okay, I go back. They actually call me in for Milos. They say they still don't have a script. They don't know what you're doing. But when you get there, he's going to give you a scene and you're going to do a scene with a casting director and they're going to put you on tape. So I said, okay. Again, I'm totally relaxed. I don't have any belief that this is some big deal. I might get a small role or whatever. There's nothing to win because I'm not asked really to act. Okay, I go in and I do that, and it's fine. And that character's being bossed around by his wife, and I can do that. And that's that. But again, I walk away. There are like 100 other guys my age there, and I'm just thinking, whatever, I don't know. My agent says something to me about, I think Johnny Depp wants to play that part in it. And I was like, okay, whatever. Back to Rob Reiner. He wants me to come in and do the same scene as if there's a helicopter 15 feet away. Like you have to be loud. So I'm like,
Okay.
why? And of course, I'm second guessing, like, why? Was I too shy, quiet? Whatever. I go in. At this point, again, I'm relaxed because it's getting funny. I keep driving all the way over and trying anything. I do it so loud, he laughs, right? He thinks it's funny. He says, yeah, we're not going to do it that way. And I thought, here we go again. He says, but I think you should play the part. So, my God, I got a part. Okay. And that's so exciting because we know it's already Jack Nicholson, Tom Cruise, Demi Moore, Kevin Bacon, Kiefer Sutherland. It's an incredible cast. Okay. And we have a read through in 2 days. I'm so excited. The day before the read through, I call my agent because this is back before cell phones. You called your agent all the time. Even if you were shy, you just were annoying. You had to be. And I call and I say, hey, listen, I'm going to go get my head shaved because I want to show up at the read through really into it and show him how committed I am. And it's his the agent's assistant on the phone. She said, no, no, you can't get your hair cut and you need to hold on. I said, okay, I'm holding for 15 minutes. Finally, she comes back on. I said, hey, listen, I'm just going to go. And when I'm done, she says, no, you can't go anywhere. He's going to be on the phone in 1 second. Milos wants me to play this part in this movie, but I have to go meet Mike Medavoy, who's the head of TriStar. This is all going through my head. And I can't do A Few Good Men. I was so bummed. I remember that was my first response because I still don't know what I'm getting into with Milos. I'm excited, but
Yes.
so I go meet Mike Medavoy and talk about being nervous. It's a huge conference room. He's got a cigar. It's just him at the end of this table and me, right? And I'm told before I go in that they're negotiating a 3-picture deal with TriStar, but only if Mike Medavoy likes me. So whatever, he asks me some questions. I'm nervous. I'm literally shaking. I'm not sure. What I don't know is this is all perfect. The character is this. The character is somebody who's awkward and not sure and everything. Mike Medavoy's not wild about it. He wants a star, but he says, all right, I have to immediately pack. I'm going to Japan. One last thing. I am allowed to do the read through with Rob Reiner and that all those actors. So I go to the table read and he already knows what's going on. He comes right over to me, says, hey, congratulations. This is so exciting. I'm sorry you're not doing our movie, but thanks for doing the table read. So I still haven't read the script for the Milos thing. I haven't had a chance, right? I do the table read. It was one of the most fascinating times in my whole career.
I have to pause there. I need to know because people get fired off table reads all the time. I think
Yeah.
a lot of actors don't know even how to get to the table read. What with those heavy hitters, what's the fascination? Can you get into detail? What is happening
Yeah.
at this table?
Everyone is super quiet and aware about everybody else, except Tom Cruise, the most relaxed guy in the room. Jack Nicholson comes in and he's got his sunglasses on. He's very cool. He's talking a little bit. And we all take our places, this huge cast. So it's a big table. So it's so big that Tom Cruise keeps going. He's got a script, right? It's just reading. But he goes, when he has a scene with somebody, he gets out of his chair and he goes up over to them. So he's right with that person. So even with me, he came right all the way over to me and he wants to do it. And I'm just watching everybody, right? I don't have that much to do. The table read is actually famous because of something that happened. Like it's famous in the industry. And what happened was the famous scene when Tom gets Nicholson's character to go off, right?
Mhm.
And when they do it, and again, we're just reading, when they do it, Rob Reiner actually stops and tells Jack Nicholson, when we're doing it, obviously you're going to have to bring more Something to that effect. I don't think he used those words, but he was basically giving direction. And he hadn't really stopped many people. It's just that this is the climax of the movie and the story and everything. And for whatever reason, he did that. Jack Nicholson was clearly taken aback. Wait, what? Silence. Even Tom Cruise now is not sure. Okay. And he's trying to rescue the moment. So obviously, we're reading and he's trying to cover, but it's too late. And Jack, at some point, he does this with his glasses, like he just gives a look, like, but he never says anything. And we just continue on and we're to the end of it. But to this day, people know, some people in the business know this story because you're talking about all these actors who go off and tell the story, and it's their favorite story. Jack Nicholson, he tried to direct Jack Nicholson. Now, look, the moment is iconic in the history of film, so it all worked out. But anyway, it was such a crazy thing. Now I'm on the plane to Japan.
And now are you reading the script?
Lois wants me to help cast, like I have to read with these young Japanese women. I'm finally reading it in Japan Airlines, first class. It's me. It's all me. I'm an American businessman who is very much like Dylan Walsh. And at that time in my 20s, a little nervous with people, but game, has some gumption, and I'm him. And it's all about me. And the woman who's going to play my wife is Marissa Tomei, and that's perfect. And I eventually meet her. Now, look, I have to jump ahead because the movie was never made. At the time, Sony had taken over TriStar and that whole lot in Culver City. This was recent, and now we're used to it. Oh yeah, Sony, the Sony lot, we now call it. You didn't call it that back then. It was still new. The Japanese have bought this major American studio. What's that going to mean? This was one of the first casualties. Milos was trying to make a movie about an American businessman in Japan. He saw a thing on 60 Minutes about hell camps, these manager training camps, and they were crazy. Like they would humiliate you, they'd spray water on you, and if you failed, they'd slap your wrist and blah, blah, blah. In the movie, it's fun. The guy falls in love with the woman who's his instructor, and it's about that. It's a fun movie. But there was also something about sumo wrestling. Okay, what happened is we're in Japan, and it's hard to do business. It was hard to do business at that time because even though they had just bought our studio, they were very protective of their culture, and they were worried about Milos. They were worried that he was delving in and that he was going to make fun of them. He wasn't. He loved Japan. He loved the people. He laughed. Every day I saw him just laugh with people. And of course, they adored him. He's the great Milos Forman. But he would be at a location and he'd say, "So do we have this location? Because I really want it." And the Japanese had a way of saying, "We'll see." They didn't agree to anything. So sometimes he would get a little frustrated, but he loved everything. Basically, the top brass decided, no, we're not going to make this film because it's too early and we can't let anybody make a film about set in Japan. Everybody had to be paid. We were all too far down the road on this thing.
Yes.
Everybody was paid. It cost them like $12 million to not make this movie.
And now you come back and you don't technically have a job. How much time before this megawatt hit of A Few Good Men comes out? Do you have another job that you go on to? I love that you're telling this story because we always have these moments of, oh, this is going to be the mountaintop, or oh, this is going to go. And it's always the projects that we're like, this is going to move the needle. And
the thing was, it was so upsetting because it's like somebody pulled the rug out. But at the same time, I was already getting attention. Who's the guy who got the lead role for Milos Forman? That was already going around. So the first thing I do is Adrian Lyne is doing a movie called Indecent Proposal. I come in, he likes me. He says, "I can't cast you yet. You're my choice. You're going to read with a bunch of people, and we're going to see if you have chemistry, and then we're good." I did screen tests. The screen test was, I don't know if you remember the movie, but a couple decides that she should sleep with Robert Redford and make a night. So I would meet, say, Juliette Lewis. Shake her hand, we would get into bed, fool around a little bit, and then we'd lie on our backs and have this dialogue about, I don't know, should you? That's some good money. And I mean, then you're done. You just do it once. And it's this crazy scene. And I would do that, and then they'd come back another day, and it would be Nicole Kidman. And she was great, and we actually had chemistry. So again, no cell phones. Adrian Lyne would call me. What'd you think? I said, I thought she was the best so far. By this point, I've slept with Lolita Davidovich, God, who else? Juliette Lewis, a whole, just all these
Julia
actors.
Roberts, did she happen to come
She
through
did
on
not.
this one?
She did not.
That would be full
But
circle.
that would be. But the Nicole Kidman wasn't Nicole Kidman at the time. She was really his wife. It's unfair to say that, but she even said it at the time. She was much more kind of fun and Australian and had that curly hair
Gorgeous hair,
and
yes.
much more, yeah, whatever. She hadn't done the Hours yet, where she's Virginia Woolf. So she was just fun, and we played it fun. We got along really well. And based on this phone call, I think, okay, I think this might happen. It might be me. Then he calls me back, Adrian Lyne. He says, you got to do me a favor. I said, shh. Remember, I am nobody at this time. And he says, Demi Moore apparently feels left out that I didn't have her come in. So you got to come in and read with her. Now understand, all the other screen tests were on a soundstage, on a set with a camera, right? And we did all the coverage. She won't do that. She wants to sit in Sherry Lansing's office, who was the head of Paramount at the time, and sit on a couch and no kissing, nothing like that. She just wants to read. Okay. I go in. Here's the thing, and it's nothing against Demi Moore. It's that thing that he kept saying, and I had no chemistry. None. Part of it was just how things had changed. I'm in Sherry Lansing's office. She's sitting there behind her desk. And I'm just a little bit like, what happened? And because it took months to get to this point. And she's trying, she's working with me. But she's also this continuous conversation with Sherry Lansing. And it starts to seem like, oh, this is already done. It's her. And I'm picking up on that. And when they finally really tape me and everything, it feels, because I'm not getting that kind of attention anymore.
It's feeling a little
Sure
sterile.
enough, they told me a few days later, it says, no, it's not going to be you. They just didn't see the chemistry. And then it's Woody Harrelson. So now I've had the Milos thing happen. I've had this happen. Oh, terrible. Still, I had a ticket. Who was the guy that almost got? These are all big things, and people hear about it. Long story short, Robert Benton's doing a movie with Paul Newman called Nobody's Fool, and he's already heard about me. So he says, I want to see this kid. Bring him in. He'll read with Paul. I go in and read with Paul Newman.
The TV and film landscape, it's constantly changing, but traditional actor training has largely remained the same.
It's focused on a theater model whose main goal is to help you stretch the expression of your instrument. That's why you can have years of training,
From scene study classes to audition classes.
to even an MFA, and still not be able to book a 2-line co-star.
That's why we created the Bridge for Actors.
A collection of tech, craft, and business online courses to teach you the skills that you need to go from a student of acting
To a working actor.
Okay, I need to know preparation for this, because also you've done a television show for a while. I know you want to do theater. So I need to know, especially getting ready to sit down with the man, what kind of craft preparation are you doing for this?
Something told me, because it's it's his son, but it's a guy who's in the midlife crisis, trouble in his marriage. He can't really take care of his son. He doesn't have control over him. Things are happening too quickly. He has a bad relationship with his father, who's Paul Newman. And so my take on it from the very beginning was don't act, no acting. I took a page from Milos Forman. I thought, I'm not going to play this person. It's just me. It's me. If the line is, I don't want to go, Dad, it's just going to be as simple as, I don't want to go, Dad. It's just simple.
Yes. So you're not scoring the script. You're not like, okay, here's the turn. I'm going to make sure I do this here. I'm arcing it here. You're just
Zero.
embodying.
No agenda. Literally
agenda.
just be there. I did tell myself, try to forget it's Paul Newman. It's your father. And how do you behave around a guy who's your father who's let you down over the years? So I did make that adjustment, because when you're sitting with Paul Newman.
It's hard not to put pressure. I think a lot of actors, we go into pressure and then it's, okay, let me just make sure I know the lines. but then
And
those become a little,
immediately something flies out of you
exactly,
that's
exactly.
crucial. Yeah.
So
So
were you like, okay, I'm just going to know the lines and then just show up with Paul and we'll see what happens? Or you,
kind of. And I knew that Robert Benton, he was another one I was nervous about, but he was so sweet. Had me come in and he said, I heard about everything you've been through. You're like you're the most famous guy who's not famous right now in the industry. So that made me feel good. I come in, I meet Paul. He couldn't be easier to deal with. He's just, how you doing? Where'd you come in from? Now, by this point, I'm living in LA and this
Mhm.
is in New York. So they actually fly me out just to
Back
read.
home? Yeah.
So I'm just reading, but I'm excited. I've been flown out and I'm reading with Paul. And I did what I said I was going to do, which is I just listened. This is my dad. It's not Paul Newman. It's my dad. And we did this scene, which in the movie, he has me climb a fence and jump over. I'm going to steal a snowblower and we have to drug these two Doberman pinschers. Okay. So they're drugged and I'm supposed to climb that. So we have to like fake all
There's
that.
physicality. Yes.
Yeah. And Paul says, God, it's too bad we can't just do that. Can't you just hire him? He says at one point, he's being funny, just being funny. And Robert Benton says, I would like to, but let's just finish this. So Scott Rudin, if you've heard of Scott Rudin, he was the producer. He got Robert Benton. Benton got Newman. He's the chief. Because I'm nothing special. He didn't think I could do it. He wanted to get,
Who didn't think? Rob or
no,
Paul?
Scott Rudin.
Okay.
Then I get a second call that says, the problem is Robert Benton and Paul Newman want you. They had gone through different stars. And again, the choice that I made was golden because they were all doing something, right? And
Now, as
Paul
far
just,
as even doing something, it just are you trying to climb over a fence, even though Paul's like, make
not
this
yet.
real? Okay.
This goes on for at least like 6 weeks, because it doesn't sound like I'm going to get it. But my agent's still trying to use it to get other things. Finally, they relent and they say, we're going to get 6 guys out. They're going to screen test, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Fly me back out. Same thing. I'm just telling myself, just do the scene. So I get there. Paul Newman comes. He had this thing he'd do with his glasses. First of all, he was so smart. He knew he wanted to be disarming. He knew the problem with anybody coming to meet him. So he did have these little weird, like he would have his glasses like this and he'd talk.
Under his ears.
And you were so distracted by the weirdness of that. And then he'd tell us a joke. He did tell the worst jokes.
Worst
And
dad
he would just
jokes
do
possible.
anything to just be a normal guy, right? When I get there, he runs over. He says, so glad you're here. I just wish they would hire you. So I feel good, right? And he says, look, let's do everything we can to set this up. He drags a ladder over. He says, this will be your fence, okay? Okay. What else we got? What else we got? Where do you want to save the dogs? He wants to set this for me. Give me every chance. Anyway, I get the part. Finally, it pays off, right?
Yes.
And I go and I did a movie and I was there in the Hudson Valley for 2.5 months with Paul Newman. And and Robert Benton, by the way, and Bruce Willis and Jessica Tandy and Melanie Griffith. And it was just what an experience.
Okay. Now, after watching James Earl Jones and he does this.
Yeah.
What's Paul doing on the day of work? Like moments, like what are you gleaming from him? What an opportunity. What a school to just go and sit. Or are you really defaulting to that? Okay, I'm just playing the relationship here. I'm just here. What are you learning craft-wise?
I'm watching him and he's got a lot to do. He's in the scene with me at a moment, but then he's got 4 more scenes the rest of the day. And he had this discipline of when we're doing this, he's completely there. He doesn't have the script. He takes so many notes in his script. Believe it or not, we did rehearsals at Carnegie Hall. When you have Paul Newman, that's what you do. Okay. But I remember just seeing him scribble and you get new pages and he'd have to swap them out and redo he was always with his script, but he never had it on the set because by that time you're doing that scene.
Yeah.
So that's something I learned, which was important for later, because if you play a lead role, how do you do it? You can't just be in the moment. You got to go back out, open the script. While they're lighting, you got to peek at what's coming up. Okay.
Yeah,
so
you're the seamstress as the lead. You're the one that's tying where you're coming from, where you're going. And I don't think I've yet to talk to anybody that is taught. School doesn't teach you how to lead a film, how to do something out of order. That was something I had to figure out 15 years ago. And you do usually glean it by watching somebody. You got to work with Laura Linney. I've stolen for her. She reads the script every single night when she's not like every single night that she's working, just the excavation, the constant. So you're watching people so you can pick up like, okay, I guess that's how I do that. And you're getting to do it with what a shifting career at the beginning, so dynamic to go from here to here. And I always think it's the karma building, right? Where you're like, oh, I didn't get that one. Oh, I didn't get that one. You don't know which one is coming
I
next.
think of it that way too. I still do. If I have a
Do you?
couple in a row that they didn't work out, I feel like one's coming. And that is how it works.
It is, especially when you have the track record that you do. When you've got decades, you can relax a little into something's coming. Or let me ask you that. Have you ever had that moment of, I guess that's it? Like after doing, I want to get to Nip Tuck. I'm curious about that audition process. Was it offered? Ryan Murphy's just coming off of doing a show called Popular. It's not like he's not Ryan Murphy yet. It's a very
Yeah.
unusual show for the time. It's risky. It's what's the entry point to that? And then to me, that makes you so well known. You're in so many living rooms. Is there a pivot point after that? It's fuck, I can't get them to shake this role now. Have you ever had that moment?
Not really shake a roll. A little. There was right after Nip Tuck, there was a moment. I was maybe going to be the guy in Longmire. I don't know if you saw that, the cowboy, the kind of guy. And they were like, everybody just, you're Sean McNamara. So that
Yep.
did happen. But it's a good story because you're right. Ryan Murphy wasn't anybody. And in
How'd they
fact,
get you? How did they land
well,
you?
here's the thing. I wasn't anybody. I'd done a lot of things. I'm at that point where they'll look at me and they'll say, yeah, he's not right for this. So then fewer things, fewer opportunities, and you better go in and score because often you're turning somebody's
Idea.
around, right? And I had gone through so many ups and downs and I wasn't a star and I'd become resigned to it. I was in my late 30s and I would pick up work and I was an actor. I had given up that any
You're a working
big
actor. Mhm.
stardom thing was going to happen. I'm a working actor. I'm in Kings Road Cafe in LA with a friend of mine, and this guy comes up, and I swear to God, I thought he was the waiter. And he says, hello, Dylan. And I said, yeah. I literally think he's about to ask me, what do you want to order? And he says, I wrote a pilot. Now, here's what's funny. I'm not a star. I wasn't then, certainly. People do that if they know you're in the business at all. If you're at the ER for something, a nurse will come up and say, I do have a script. I'd just love you to read it. So it becomes a running joke. So this guy, of course, he's written a pilot. My thought was, sure you have.
Yeah, right.
He
Yeah.
says, we're actually all sitting over in that corner. And this was a group of people who would become who I work with, right? The producers, Greer
All the
Shepard's there,
producers.
Mike Robbins there, and they're having a meeting and they're talking about who might play these roles. And my name has come up for Sean McNamara. Now, Ryan claimed later that that's because I saw him in Nobody's Fool. He hadn't. When I finally was on a plane with Bill Condon, the director, Bill said, yeah, I'm friendly with Ryan, and I'm the one who told him about you. I told him you got to go see Nobody's Fool. I think if you see it, you'll think this guy could be Sean McNamara. So that's how that happened. But now, hold on. So he says he has a script. He says, I'd love for me to read it. He didn't have an extra copy there. I'm just not buying the whole thing. I really just want to have my coffee. But I was like, okay, great. I told him my agent. I said, that's great. Okay. The script is at my doorstep by the time I get home. I thought, wow, this is fast. Now, I'm not working. I get it and I read it. By this point, I've read 10,000 pilot scripts in the years I've been in the business. This was the best I'd ever read. It just was.
Yeah.
Not just because I was right for the part, which I was, but because the whole thing, I couldn't stop turning the pages. I was like, oh my God. And I realized I want this more than anything in life.
Oh shit.
So now they want you to come in and read. Okay. I'm not just going to get it. Nope. I go in and now it's hard. I read for Ryan and he gave me a lot of direction.
What
Like,
was your initial, especially because you'd read so many scripts, you're going in first time, Ryan's come up to you and said, I want you for this. Again, other than reading the script, how are you excavating what you want to do?
I felt early on that this was a guy who thought he was the moral one, and it was important that he defend that. And whenever anything came up, he would go to this kind of what ended up being bluster because he really wasn't a moral person. It's just that he thought he was, while Christian Troy had no problem being who he was. That was what was beautiful about him, that character and the way Julian played him. He didn't apologize for anything. Whereas Sean he had to navigate what he wanted to project against what he actually was. So I knew that early on and I liked it. It's in the pilot. It's fascinating because I'm arguing with Christian about this, that, and the other. How are we getting into this? Why are we doing plastic surgery for these guys who are in the mob? This is crazy. But at the end of the pilot, who's leading the way? Who is tying hams to a body and who's totally into it? And who's the nervous one? He's a little bit left over from his Botox trauma, Christian. But it's me. I'm the one who's wiping stuff down and like trying to get it together and close the trunk, done. So I loved that. And from the beginning, I felt like I had to show both at these auditions.
And what's Ryan's direction? Especially how interesting too, somebody that's coming off of Popular, taking direction. I know he wrote it, but what is his idea that he starts infusing with yours?
I couldn't get a vibe on Ryan as a director. To me, I just had this amazing script to go on because when he would direct me, I do want to point out because he became an excellent director, but he hadn't really directed at this point. And really, Mike Robin was going to direct the pilot. And then Ryan just at the last second took it from him and said, I think I can do it. So he doesn't know directing actors. Yes. Later, when we're doing the show, we would joke with him. We would say, you can't give 3 notes after every take, because then by take 4, that's 12 notes in your mind. And he would laugh, and he did start to learn. Again, outstanding director, but he had to learn. So in the early days, and I'm just trying to win the role, and I'm aware that if he picks me, I will go to the studio, test for them, and if they pick me, I will then go to the network. So there are more people than Ryan I got to convince, and so I got to stick with my ideas here. He gives me a lot of things, and I'm not sure about some of it. I just stick with what I'm doing, finally go to the studio, and I keep meeting Julian, and he's going through the same thing. He's, well, I think they really want like a Hispanic person or somebody that. And he says, but I just know I can play the part. We're sitting waiting to go in and read. I don't know him, and we're just laughing. Anyway, we go in front of Warner Brothers. We get some notes, and Ryan calls each of us and gives us lots of notes. So you don't feel like you're hitting it out of the park. You feel like, okay, I'm writing this down. Okay. Then we go in front of the network, and that's it. It's me and really one other guy. And when we're waiting in the waiting room, Julian says, hey, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think you'd be good at this. I said, I think you would be too. We read, no notes, nothing, just do it. Total freedom. It's big guys are in there. There's the head of FX at the time, Kevin Riley, who would go on to be a head of a network, and Peter Liguori would go on to be a head of a network. And I'm acting for them. And I don't know, then it's done, and I'm going to drive home, see what happens. We had valeted our cars, so I'm standing there next to Julian. He said, how'd it go? I said, I don't know. At this point, who knows? He said, exactly. And this is the whole show. A car pulls up. It's like one of these decked out, it's like a Cadillac, but it's extra big. So it's made by Cadillac. It's this huge sort of SUV that's immaculate, shiny black. It looks like it could be a tank, and it also looks like it could be it's fabulous. And I'm just staring at this thing, and he goes and he gets in, and he's adjusting things, taking his time. It's this huge thing. And then a car pulls up behind it. It's this hatchback used car with pigeon shit all over it, 2 car seats in the back. And the guy says, and I go over and I give him the ticket, and I'm just very aware that I'm right behind that shiny, glistening, beautiful car. And that's the show. That is the show right there. It's absolutely the show. We were both on our way home to our each different homes when we got a call, pulled over, and you got the part.
And what a life-changing.
Yeah.
Sincerely, it anchors you. Is it from this point forward where you're fielding choices versus seeking choices?
Again, I'm honest because I want
Thank
actors
you.
to hear this. I'm a career where you're not ever there. I started to feel while doing Nip Tuck, started to feel like I was something, right?
Mhm.
That's a little bit of an illusion, and it can't help but feel it because the show's a hit.
Yeah.
I'm one of the leads, right? And we would go to these
Of
promotional
course.
things and feel like stars. And but the show ends, and yeah, the first pilot season after Nip Tuck, which is really when you don't want to do a pilot. You really want to
Exactly.
wait a little bit. Julian waited. He was like, I need to work, right? I was going through a divorce. I needed some
Yes.
money. It was
Yeah.
just life's happening. And also, I just like to work. What was I going to do? Just that first pilot season, I did have my pick, and I picked something that, of course, didn't get picked up. But that was okay. The second pilot season after Nip Tuck, already I'm back to where I was. Yeah, I can get in the room if I really like something, but they're not offering it. You got to jump through some hoops and get it. The first job I did was called Unforgettable, but that's when this thing happened with Longmire, where I thought I was going to play, and I thought, that what a great contrast to Nip Tuck,
Yes.
cowboy, and blah, blah, blah. And I just barely missed out on it. So I was bummed, and I got offered this thing on CBS, which I did in New York, and it was a procedural, didn't really do anything for me. It was a fun job, made some money. But honestly, that's what I would say. Julian had more buzz. He always had a little more heat, partly because of the character he played, but also he was really good. And it came with that character and it came with his personality, both. Let's face it, I played the guy who drove the car with the pigeon shit. He was everybody's dream.
The flashy.
And when I
Yes.
had
Yep.
sex on the show, something went wrong every time.
The
So
timing.
fun, used to say that. He said, still has more fun. But anyway,
Yes. Thank you for being honest, because I do think as an actor, you're always reaching for that next level, thinking that's going to bolster you in that level. And I always just say I allude it to surfing. You catch a wave. Sometimes those waves are fucking huge.
yeah.
They come to shore.
Yeah.
You gotta paddle back out. And you
Yep.
might get a small one, you might not get one for a while.
For
And
a
I
while.
think that it's the marathon that keeps you in as that working status. Like now I want to ask from a business standpoint, look, you are the last member of Life Sentence to do the podcast. We've had Lucy, Jason Blair, Brooke, Jillian. We've had the creators of the show. We've had everybody here. So whether it's Life Sentence, whether we want to jump to Heated Rivalry, what makes you decide when you are getting solicited, okay, this is what I'm going to take on right now? Is it basically, I just want to get back to work? I do think that there is a science to how you get to choose when you're going to work and when you don't. I know there's seasons where we don't have that choice and you're like, yeah, I need to pay the bills. But what
Right.
makes you attached to playing something?
To be, again, just honest, I would turn down things all along. If something was just really bad and they'd heard that, oh, he's the guy, Milo Shoma, and I knew it was bad, I could say no. I didn't have to work. And that was true for years. And right after Nip Tuck, I could say no to certain things. But by the time life sentence comes along. And again, I need to point out, people see that I went from Nip Tuck and then I did Unforgettable and then I did
Mhm.
this and that. And right now people think that I'm nonstop working because I have Heated Rivalry. I've got a
Yep.
Lifetime movie. I've got another movie on Paramount Plus that's going to open. And I'm doing a movie right here in
Yes.
Covington where I met you.
Yes.
And so I'm doing interviews because of Heated Rivalry and they'll say, my God, you must never stop working. I'm like, it looks like that, but just so you know, like this thing I'm doing now, this is the first job I've had in 7 months. 7 months, that's not terrible, but
Hmm.
think about it. No paychecks for
Yep.
7 months. So people just assume I go, and there's always a gap between things. Even if I go right on to something, that's rare. So when life sentence comes along, we've had to move out of New York because you can't live in New York without a job.
Yep.
So we go to Louisiana, where my wife is from, and we're hanging out in Lafayette because it's cheaper and we need a break. And we're waiting for my next big show. And there's nothing, and there's nothing, and there's nothing. I go do a little job and that doesn't lead anywhere. I do another job, like a horror movie. It doesn't lead to anything. These are just things I'm picking up because now I need some money. Okay, then I get this script and I laugh when I read it.
Yeah, it's
They
so
wrote such, Aaron and Richard wrote such a funny, irreverent, interesting script, right? Where halfway through it, I thought to myself, is this a comedy about cancer? This is crazy. And it was.
It
right?
was.
That script people talked about because it was bold. And so now I'm excited because it's Bill Lawrence, who has followed me. I had been told. He's always liked me from Nip Tuck. And so he would like me to play the part. I said, do I have to read? I'll read. And they said, no, he knows you and he thinks you're right for it. It's going to be no money, and
Yep.
you got to decide you're ready. You want to do this because it's probably going to go for a while. Everybody thought it would go for a long time. You had Lucy Hale, funny script.
You got
Bill
Lee
Lawrence.
Krieger, who signs on to do the pilot, which is in opposition of the comedy of cancer, but he's such a brilliant director too.
I
So you
agree, but you've just hit on it. And I've worked with Lee twice. I think he's the best TV director out there, especially for a pilot. He gets
Yes.
going, and I love him. And it was great working with him on Life Sentence. But that's where it started. And it didn't even start with him. It started with from the script we all read that we were laughing to what we read at the table read that's taped and gets fed right over to the CW people and the Warner Brothers people, and then they get notes, give
Yeah.
notes. Right away, some of the irreverence is getting toned down. Okay.
Exactly.
And I could feel it right away. And I decided to do this. I needed a job. I liked Bill Lawrence, and I thought, I might get to do a little comedy here. right?
Yes.
This is funny.
A
I think this is
departure
great.
from where you've been building.
So we all get together. And by the way, if you've had everybody on the show, I loved each and every one of those people. It was a joy to be with them.
Yeah.
They were all great, real, but also funny. Jason
Yeah.
was nuts.
I have to say, coming in as a guest, it really felt like a family.
Yeah.
Like I was in half the episodes. You're my pseudo father-in-law to be, if it all works out, if we go to a second season. But the casting was brilliant. Jen Cooper did a brilliant job of who was offered, who came in and read. It felt like one of those shows where you're like, this will go 7 years.
Yeah. And I made the joke, and they'll tell you, I made the joke early on. I said, this will never go because we all like each other.
Exactly.
The ones that go are when it's somebody and we can't stand him or her,
Yeah,
and oh my
totally.
God, I'm stuck with, and those go for 10 years. So we all were having a good time, but we were also, nobody talked about it. But as I said, starting with the table read, each successive script coming in, they're
Mhm.
just rounding edges. Now we're shooting it. I did a scene, this will tell you everything. I do a scene, and again, this is the pilot, and we're shooting in right here, Covington, which is just an hour from Atlanta. And I'm doing a scene with Jason, who plays my son, and I'm doing Adderall, the character.
Yep.
And I'm seated on the floor, and there are these papers all around me and a calculator. And the show, for anybody who doesn't know the premise, was that we'd given everything, every ounce of ourselves to hanging with Lucy Hale's character because she had cancer. Now that she's cancer-free, our lives are a mess and we got to pick up the pieces. So I'm the head of the family, supposedly, and I can't figure out how we've gone so broke. And I'm on Adderall, and my son comes and says, Dad, you okay? I'm like, yes, I'm just trying to figure. It's crazy. It's a crazy scene. It was funny. It was wrong, but it set the tone with what this could be. It didn't end up in the pilot. Okay? It couldn't.
Yep.
How could it? But that was what they were doing. And so when I did stay in touch with Bill Lawrence, and I was lucky enough to go to Prague with him and play the bad guy in a Scott Foley show called Whiskey Cavalier. So I got to sit with him and say, so what's the autopsy on Life Sentence? And he said he thought the showrunners were a little green, but I was there with them. It wasn't that. And by the way, they're great, and I swear by it. They're
Very funny.
Richard could throw you a line while you're in the middle of the take that would be even funnier, that we
Than
would
what
have
he
to
wrote.
kind of take a moment to stop laughing before we tried it. But it wasn't just that it was funny. It had that thing that kind of rubbed you almost, oh my God, did he just say that? These things didn't make it. It was just fascinating to
I
experience.
think it was before its time.
I think it was, and they were just afraid. They were afraid to pull the trigger on it. And that's from the top down. Bill Lawrence, he said that, but I think he was grasping at straws too. Except that it's pretty easy to know if now that I've had enough distance from it, a show about cancer that's boldly funny, that's something. A show, when you take all that away and it's just a show about cancer,
Yeah. Flatlines a little bit.
I don't want to see it either.
Yeah.
I watched this process happen. At some point, we got a note that they want it to be more like Riverdale.
Yes.
That didn't work either. We could just feel it not working. And still we thought it would get picked up because
I
Lucy Hale
know.
had this
'Cause look,
huge social media following and she was a sweetheart.
you just never know. Okay, and then that takes me to, of course, we have to talk about it, and I have a couple of audience questions specifically to get to, and a Christina Chong question. But okay, so then here comes Heated Rivalry. And
Yeah.
like you said, you're reading scripts constantly. I'm assuming this was also a beautiful offer, like, Dylan, please come play with us. As you guys are shooting, as you guys are experiencing this, what are you thinking? Are you thinking that this is going to go to the sensation, global sensation, that it is at this current state, that we're all begging for a second season? But honestly, I don't know if I want a second season. Sometimes leave it as it is.
We did not have any idea. I'll tell you, I did it because I like Jacob Tierney. He'd done another series called Letterkenny and it was weird and funky. And I thought, I want to work with this guy. I knew the role, there wasn't much to him. It wasn't going to move a dial or anything like that. It was just something I thought, yeah, we'll go to Canada. Getting into Canada, that sometimes they'll recognize you, the immigration guy, and he'll say, hey, so what are you working on? And I would say, well, it's about two hockey players who are gay. And, okay, give me back my passport.
Stamp.
Good luck with that. That's just how I just expected. Okay, I did see the boys, and Jacob was great from the beginning. He basically came to me and said, I loved you on Nip Tuck. That's why I wanted you. But I don't want you to do a whole lot. I want you to just be there and I want you to listen and I want you to process without any kind of judgment or outrage or anything like that. You love your son and you don't have anything negative. It's just, if anything, you're mad at yourself for taking so long to get it. He said, that's your conflict. I said, okay, I'll work on that. But I would see the boys. They were a delight to be around, good people, and they were good actors, and they were working so hard and they were so committed, but I wasn't there for all the sex stuff. Of course I wasn't, right?
No, did you have the same 9 days that Christina did essentially?
Yeah.
7 to 9 days?
I had one extra because I had to do that stuff where I see the guys.
That's Christina's one question. I interviewed her last week and I was like, you got a question for Dylan? She goes, yes, I want to know what his actor preparation was for when he walks in and sees the boys.
I actually did have to do things like as they're rolling, I would have to say things like, as far as I know, somebody's about to give me some ice cream. As far as I know, I'm about to be told that I have a great role inside. Everything it was just, I don't know what I'm about to see, right? Walking in, I'm just going to grab my phone and I did have to do a little something because otherwise you're walking in, what am I going to see? Oh my God.
A little foreshadowing.
Yeah. But it's funny because I've talked about doing things where you think, I keep saying that term, move the dial, and everybody in the business knows what I mean. So many roles or projects they don't end up doing much for you. And then something like Heated Rivalry, which I knew wouldn't do anything for me because this is going to be watched by a small demographic and probably be some backlash knowing this country that I live in. And that'll be that. It's a job though, and I've got to meet Jacob. And now it's like this worldwide sensation. And by the way, I don't do much in the show, and everybody still wants to talk to me about it. And yet they don't want to talk about all these countless other things that I've done. I'm so happy for those boys. They were so committed. They at every moment, and they would get sick of each other and still have to like work through it and stand in front of each other. And before every take, like they had these little games they would play, like these little hand slapping games, anything to keep them in it. And they deserve it. And I think back, and by the way, what they're going through is way beyond even Nip Tuck land.
It's a different stratosphere right now.
This is another stratosphere. They're going around the world. They're just fielding this, that, and the other.
But you and Christina, I love that the note that Jacob gave you about what's your conflict, because I think what all of America has done, whether you are gay or you feel othered, it's having your parents fully accept you for who you are. We just haven't really seen that portrayed in any way. And you
It's
guys
true.
anchored that so beautifully. So now you've become the hero, mom and dad,
Right.
for all children, regardless of sexual orientation. Anybody that is like fighting to really have their authenticity and be seen by their parents, like in
You're
such a
right.
simple way.
And it's very reassuring to me because I'm one, I told you, I thought there would be backlash because I'm narrow-minded, because I live in
Yeah,
America, where I'm right here
no,
in Georgia, I can tell you. By the way, people running up to me in
I
Georgia
bet. Of
about Heated Rivalry. I don't know whether they're straight or gay. The gay ones tell me right away. A
course.
girl came up to me and she says, "Oh my God, I wish you hit it right on the nose. I wish when I told my parents that they were as cool as you were in the show."
Yeah. What I
Give
mean,
Jacob credit. He knew how to make it land. He knew that sincerity and let these guys, as far as he went with the sex, he
mhm,
knew he had to counteract that with a decent place to land. And
that's what you.
now listen, Christina had a harder job and she's so good in it. And she had to play the bossy, almost like a stage mother,
Momager. Yeah.
way more involved. And if anything, David's okay, let's just let him breathe. But I had to pick my moments because I also have to back her up sometimes. That's how a
Yeah.
marriage works. So those were fun for us to play, but she was great at that. But her scene with him was just, that's the big scene. And I
That
give
is.
all the
I've
credit in the world. She was
I've
fantastic.
rewatched episode 5 as a standalone at night when I can't sleep. It just really does something special to you. Okay, I feel like this comes full circle for me because, like you say, James Earl Jones, you watched him listen.
Yeah.
I almost want to argue with you that the harder job, but you're so skilled at it now, 40 years in, you had to listen in Heated Rivalry. We're just projecting, all of us as audience members, our mirror neurons are just going through the roof because you've mastered the art of active listening. I think that's the hardest thing. That was one of the questions that an actor wrote in is how do you get to this place of active listening that is so engaging? I think as a young actor, we're really fighting to show what we homework or what we're doing. I don't even know how you answer that other than just
Well, I
being.
do. And you learn it, and I think a lot of actors would say this. You really learn it over the years when you're off camera. The difference when you're off camera. Okay, when they're shooting the scene, for anybody who doesn't quite know, you're shooting the scene, everybody's on camera, and as you start to go further in, obviously some people aren't on camera. That's where you relax again because you're trying so hard. When it's on you, you're nervous, your heart's racing, and there's that agenda, that horrible word, because at the end of the day, a lot acting can just be agenda. I learned over many years of being off camera and seeing how different I felt standing there. I'm relaxed. That tension's gone. My voice is relaxed.
Yeah.
And I'm listening because I can dare to listen. I'm not thinking about my next line. I'm not thinking about the agenda. I'm off camera. Nobody can see me. And lo and behold, some of the things that I've worked on, you always want to get to a point where it's the unconscious stuff that's going to come out. But a lot of times it doesn't because you're so stiff. You're trying so hard. Off camera, it does. Off camera, you hear
All the
them.
time.
You might hear them for the first time that all day. And you've been doing the scene 50 times. And you're standing there and you're relaxed. You're moving your head around because you don't care about what the light is or anything. And you just hear somebody's words and you can pick up what they're doing in their face. That's where I learn about listening. And any actor will tell you, then you hope to duplicate that. Each time you go to the next scene, you're like, do what you were just doing off,
Right.
find it.
Exactly.
That's the art. My acting teacher back in the day said, anybody can sit on a couch and watch a football game, eat popcorn. Okay. Now you're going to do the same thing, and there's an audience, and it's an off-Broadway play. What's the problem? It's different, totally different. Because now I'm a character eating the popcorn.
Yeah.
And she was always trying to get us back. Caitlin Glenn, Mary Stuart Masterson's mother, she was fantastic. And she was always trying to get us back to that. Like, that's the art. The art is, can you wind it back to, we are just watching a football game?
Private moment. You're just having a
Yeah,
private moment right
yeah.
now, being
So
witnessed in
that's
it.
where I learned to listen is off camera.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful. And I think that's what happens with auditioning, right? Whenever you're reading for a friend who has the audition, You get it quickly. You understand what's happening. You're the one off camera. It's way more natural. You put yourself right in front of that pressure situation, and now there's an agenda.
Yeah.
Want to get the job. I want to make sure I'm doing what they want. Okay, this is somebody they wrote in. What would you say is your advice on somebody who's starting later in the game? And or this, they did a two-part here. Do you miss auditioning? Are you still auditioning, Dylan? Do you miss that opportunity of being like, this is what I'm thinking versus showing up on the first day? I always call first day when you have an offer, it's your audition. Because you're like, okay, this is what I've been thinking. And
That's
now with the
true.
pressure situation with the director, the showrunner, whoever else, and you're trying to collaborate versus when you get to audition and you know that they've chosen, they've selected what you're doing, you know what to do. Do you
Yeah.
miss the
No, that
audition?
is true. With an offer comes this kind of, they don't really know what I'm going to do. It's true. You're first, yeah. I do miss auditioning. I do still audition. The higher profile the project, the more likely I'm going to have to win it somehow. And of course, nowadays you're self-taping, and that's a horrible
I want to
trend.
know your thoughts and
And
what's your process
I'm
for that.
terrible at it. I miss being in the room. I miss the adrenaline of, hey, this is go, all go, right? If you mess up, don't go, oh, wait, can I start over again? Just go. You have to
Mhm.
go. You're on stage in front of an audience, really. And you
Right.
got to make that moment work. You don't stop and go, okay, can we just start over? No, 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 go. The commitment is there. It's the opposite when you're doing a self-tape. You could do 100 takes. There's always a reason to do another one. I could do, and it just makes me crazy. I miss that little moment where you come in and it's human. And again, it's not what's consciously going on. Oh, wow, that's what
Mhm.
the director looks like, or that's what he said, or what are they doing? Or wow, I have to read with a man and I'm supposed to be talking to a woman. All those little things, that's what's in your head. It's the other stuff that happens. Like you can tell when you walk in whether they know you and they're glad you're there. And you
Mm.
can know when that's not happening. So
Right.
all of this is real and it's life and it's human and it's a starting off point before you even set a line from the thing. Now you
Yeah,
gotta,
what's your approach to self-tape? What are you trying? Yeah, how I know it's painful for a lot.
I
Yeah.
keep telling myself I just need to embrace it. And what does that mean? I live in Jersey now. So a lot of times I'm reading with my wife
Mhm.
and we're just trying to make it the best we can. People know who I am. So again, there's that thing of I've got to try to turn their opinion because they didn't offer it to me. And a lot of times you're wrong for a part and then you're just uncomfortable. But again, in the old days, I could go in, somebody could talk to me. I met Sidney Lumet, right? Sidney Lumet, and I'm so excited to meet him. And I sit down, he says, God, where'd you come from? I'm in New York. And I said, I just came down Fifth Avenue or whatever. He says, ah, and we talked about New York. And in the middle of talking, he says, by the way, you're not right for this at all, but I'm glad you came in. And then we keep talking. So I didn't
Beautiful.
even read. He knew. He
I
knew this.
actually love that.
Yeah,
I wish that could just be the process. Or
yeah,
when
he
we used to go
just,
in the room, there
yeah,
could be a button where you're like red or green, and just
yeah,
as you leave. Don't even
yeah.
have to stress about it.
So I do miss the room. I
Yeah.
really do. And as far as if you're starting a little later, I would tell you this is in tennis. In tennis, you better be 6 years old. If you didn't start at six, you're too late, right? And by the way, you're going to retire at 24 unless you're Djokovic. Acting is you could be 79. It doesn't matter. We have roles for you if you're 79. So that's not a problem. The problem is because you're older and you're breaking in, please have the courage to go to a class and study and listen and go through that horror that can be a class because you're acting, but you're not quite acting yet. And you're trying to learn, but then never feels like you are learning. All I can say is you got to study.
Have you
Um,
stepped back into any look when you're working as much as you are? That is, I feel like the study. You're around new people, new showrunners, new directors. You're getting to go to camp a lot. But do you ever dip back in and do you coach with anybody? Do you study with anybody?
I don't. One of my really close friends is a guy I've known since the early 80s when I waited tables and he was a bartender. We were both trying to be actors. He ended up being a teacher at the neighborhood playhouse. And he's the one who sent me to a teacher back in the day who was at the neighborhood playhouse, Greg Zittel. And so we are acting geeks when we get together. It's embarrassing because we just love acting so much. Right now, we cannot stop back and forth about Robert Duvall. who went to the neighborhood playhouse. So Jim Brill is his name, and he has me come into his class and I'll watch, and the students can ask me questions. And that's my kind of touchstone with it. I was actually even going to do a scene with one of the students, but that's where it gets problematic because then I have to leave. I got to go to a movie and I'm letting that person down. They're not working, they're in a class. So I've learned to just take what I can get, just seeing. And it is amazing to watch. First of all, the talent, right?
Yeah,
It's
right.
just this raw talent. But also I can see already they don't know. They don't know they have to hit a mark. They don't know. But it's fun to go in and just remember
To
what that's
revisit
like.
the simplicity of it. I call it borrowing brilliance, like you're doing on set all the time. You're watching people all the time, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I could try that. I could do
Yeah.
this. That's interesting. Dylan, what a career. Last question. What's the one thing that you wish more people would have seen?
Oh boy, that's a tricky one. I'm such a
Mhm.
realist. It's they saw what they saw. I guess I'd go back to Nobody's Fool because it wasn't a super hit given the cast. He was nominated for an Academy Award. Maybe Benton was, I can't even remember. But it was a quiet success of a movie. I wish it had been a loud success, right? The one where
Yeah.
I'm playing his son. Sure, I do. Congo, a lot more people saw, and I'm not with Paul Newman anymore. But I was
Mhm.
with, as you pointed out, Laura Linney, one of the
Really?
best actresses in the business. But I'll tell you my story there.
Please.
She and I were like, we did not know what it was like. We were in a cartoon and we were real people in an animated cartoon. We didn't fit. We didn't know what to do. All our acting
Tonally.
knowledge meant nothing. We just had to go with it. We were tortured. Okay. She came out of it. She
Mm-hmm.
goes on because she'd gone to Juilliard, but because she's a great actress. I found my way. I did fine. But to think we were equally as lost in that movie, the movie was fine. It was meant to be fun.
What do
And
you think made you lost? Was it more tonally trying to figure it out? Or I was just talking about this actually in class, or was it just the pacing of such a big scale movie and you're doing such bite-sized little pieces of a scene for days at a time that you don't even know what you're doing anymore, how you seam things
that was
together?
part of it because it was a big movie. And so dealing with that, a lot of green stuff. There's a moment where a silverback is running right up to me. Of course, it's not really running right up to me. I have nothing. I'm looking at a little X. All of that kind of stuff. Yeah, that was overwhelming. But you said the word that was difficult for Laura and I, really for all the actors. Tonally, what is this? It was a Michael Crichton book, and Michael Crichton, whatever you think of him, he wrote with sincerity. Okay. That's not to say there's no humor in his stuff, but Spielberg knew how to tease out some funny, not laugh out loud funny, but odd, quirky, fun moments in even something like Jurassic Park. But Crichton's very sincere. John Patrick Shanley wrote the screenplay for Congo, and we all revere him because we'd all done scenes of his in our acting classes. Wow. But it's him doing Crichton, adapting it. And he's sneaking in his little weird irony and his little silly thing here and there. He invented the character that Tim Curry played, Herkimer Homolka. Right there, that's a joke, right?
Right.
Just the name is a joke. So we're not in Crichton world anymore, but we are. The story is still that. We didn't know what we were doing. And what hung over us is the story about, and I hate to always reference him, except that I've worked with him and I love him and he's a great actor, Eric Stoltz, in
Mhm.
Back to the Future, that he was replaced. Okay. I think he probably would have said something similar. I feel like I'm a really serious actor in a cartoon and I sense
Yep.
that it's not working. He never said that. I'm speaking for him
Yes.
because that's how I felt and Laura felt. We just didn't know tonally what are we doing. And kept going to UCLA, the library, to study primatology and go to classes. That wasn't what
No.
that job was. It was show up. It show up and Michael J. Fox. You got to Michael J. Fox it. You got to fill a moment, right? It's either going
Hmm.
to be a little funny or charming or something. I was just so I'm a primatologist. I got to get this gorilla back home and I
Were
missed
you
the
giving
point.
options on the day since you guys didn't know? Because look, it ends up doing well. But are on the day, because you're doing like mental gymnastics as an actor, take after take, are you just trying to give different variation and options so they can edit it together? Or is that where you learned the editing skill?
In about at the end of week 2, I felt I wasn't hearing any enthusiasm. And then we had a scene on the plane. And what starts to happen is you push it a little bit. You're like a hitter in baseball and you haven't gotten a hit in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But then you're trying so hard, you're never going to hit the ball. So I'm pushing it a little bit. I literally have Eric Stoltz in my mind. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe just get out there a little more, push it. Forget primatologist. There's an attractive woman on the plane, Laura Linney. There's other things going on. Just let it take you a little bit. And we had, because this built into the scene was this craziness, brought out some energy in us. And finally, Frank Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy invited the actors into their trailer for a glass of champagne. It was like, okay, we really just started. Okay. So we started to get, it's entertainment. It's play what you can to so that you're playing and less serious. But honestly, we still were just lost. But I will say, and nothing against anybody, they were all such smart people. And honestly, I told you how much I revered John Patrick Shanley.
Yeah.
The wrong person to adapt that book. I'm sorry, he was.
I agree.
And when we came to the table read, another famous table read, but it's only famous because it's still in my mind, Frank Marshall, the director, said, okay, John Patrick Shanley's here. I'm going to defer to him. In fact, I'm going to turn this whole thing over to him and run with it. And that was a mistake too. John's not going to be there. He's not directing. What do you mean, turn it over to him? I'm going to be with you, Frank. In Costa Rica for 2 months on the Sony lot on that stage that's like a junk. I'm going to be with you. And that was a mistake. I just think that John Patrick Shanley is one of our premier writers. Screenplays,
Absolutely.
plays, fantastic. You got to let him do his thing, right? He's a hired hand. He's making some good money because he's won an Academy Award, I think, for Moonstruck. It was just not a good. I had won the part without John. I won the part. And then he starts in telling me how to say the lines, and it was just a bizarre, and I never recovered. Again, nobody's fault. Just Michael Crichton is Michael Crichton. Doesn't matter who's adapting.
I think, did it end up giving you ownership over the next job that you did as far as creating the character that you want outside of what was even written there in the moment? Look, you go on to do 100 episodes of television where you have director after director coming in that they don't necessarily tonally always know, and that it gives you, I feel like at a certain point in an actor's career, you start to have ownership over what you're creating and learning that business dialect that you need to have with the guests that are coming in, or even the person at the helm to
No,
create.
you're absolutely right. And that comes
know?
with wisdom, but also comes with some nerve. You have to understand, I've been saying names like Paul Newman, even Adrian Lyne, hugely successful. Milos Forman, those are jobs early on. You're going to come in and you're going to turn yourself over to them, whatever they say. That's a good mindset. By the time of Congo, I should have shifted gears. Okay. Yes, it's Frank Marshall, hugely successful producer. He had done 1 or 2 other movies as a director, but I've done some things too. And I had just come off Nobody's Fool. And it's not that we're on the same level. I don't mean that at all. But you got to shift gears, and I have instincts too. And I'm not just turning myself over to Milos Forman. I'm here to work because I got hired by you, Frank. You do have to learn that, both of it, just like as you pick up on things, but also you got to show up as the business person. And if I could, I've said this for years when I talk about Congo, just to go back, it's not Frank Marshall, it's not John Patrick Shanley, it's nothing. I would go back to Dylan Walsh and I would say, hey, yes, John Patrick Shanley, who you revere, just wrongly told you how to say lines. And he's going to go home and you're going to do this movie and he's not going to be there. So you just breathe through it and let it go. Okay. And go back to what you were doing that got you the role and you're fine. Okay. But I
Yes.
didn't. I kept talking about it. Laura Linney will tell you if she's on. She'll tell you, yeah, he kept talking about it. I did. And they all kept saying, get over it. It's just John's weird. And she had worked with him on stage. And I was still talking about it by the end of the movie. That's exactly what you can't do. And there's no
Yeah.
reason to.
You're trying to reason and make it make sense. That's what's going to be my last question is like, what are certain things where you could wish you could go back in your career and be like, okay, here's where you take ownership. Here's where you start doing what you're doing. That's such a good piece of advice. Wait, when did you go from Charles Hunter Walsh to Dylan?
My parents died right around, okay, so I'm just starting to get work as an actor in New York, and my parents are sick. They both had cancer at the same time.
Oh gosh.
So I get a job. It's that after school special I talked about. Actually, you know who was in it? This is crazy. James Earl Jones. He did a cameo. He was still doing fences. He had to be driven over to Jersey, play this because he was just doing it as a favor, as a thing for us. And he called us the boys from Bayonne. He thought we were all Jersey boys just doing it. No, we're all like actors. Anyway, what was I talking about?
Yeah, so I can't believe also, did James remember you later when you guys did?
No.
Yeah. When did, the change of name? The change of.
Oh, okay. So I got that. Now I have to join SAG because I've done a commercial. Now, second job, you got to join. So there was already a Charles Walsh. Okay. And so they tell me you got to use a full, no longer can you do an initial. Think about different Walshes. J.T. Walsh was a character actor. Why is it J.T.? Emmett Walsh. Why that? Why not just Walsh is a very common name in Ireland. And Screen Actors Guild has thousands of people who are members and don't do anything. Maybe they got in one way or another. There was a Charles Walsh, and I was supposed to be like with the three names. I didn't want to be the three names. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
My dad's middle name was Hunter, so I tried that on one movie, and I saw it on the screen. And I said, nope, I don't like that. I wanted so badly to be, because I grew up as Charlie. Literally, everybody called me Charlie. Which is such an accessible, and it said who I was, and that's
Yeah.
me. The story was my dad wanted to name me Dylan. My mom wanted me to be Charlie, and she won, right? So they both die, and now I'm joining Screen Actors Guild. So I did go through several names. Fortunately, some of the other ones never showed up. But finally, my sister just said, I know you like Dylan. You're just afraid of it because it sounds strong. She says, don't be afraid of it. Just be him. I said, but I'm Charlie. She still calls me Charlie. But it was such a weird thing to go through. I felt like such a phony. And my dad's already gone by this point. So I'm not honoring really anything. I'm just suddenly Dylan Walsh. It was a very strange thing.
What an interesting foreshadow into stepping into leading man status and then fighting the Charlie. But it's the Charlie that you bring to every single role that makes it so dynamic to watch. It truly, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
And literally when I check into this hotel, I'm Charles Dylan Walsh. And it's just a little helper. Nobody can really just come in and automatically find me because
Till now, we won't put this out. So they won't come in for Heated Rivalry season 2 questions, just pounding down the door. Dylan, thanks for doing this and just like walking us through. I just feel like sometimes hearing these stories from veterans, hearing just the highs and lows, the almosts, the like rearrangement, and then the green lights. It just really keeps people going.
You do a good interview and you are a very good listener. So you've learned somewhere and it was a joy. I had fun.
I had such a good time. It was so good to see you.
Good to see you.
I hope to cross paths on a set with you again.